when and how to take their car keys. Some advice for caregivers. In a previous video, I described the death of my father by an unfortunate lady who should have stopped driving many years before. There's more to the story and a further family tragedy to reveal. I'm sure my situation is no different from thousands of others as well. We share the pain and hope that our experiences will positively impact others. But that doesn't diminish the reality of the danger on our roadways and in our lives. After my father's death at an art sale in a local shopping area in 2000, my mother continued to drive into her early 80s. It should not be surprising that after the accident, her 40-year art career was essentially over. After producing and selling hundreds of landscapes, predominantly of Arizona and the West, she was proud to say that her paintings were all over the world, since Sun City West, Arizona was a tourist center for international visitors, not just a popular national retirement area. Following Dad's death, she just couldn't turn on the creative juices any longer, and soon some signs of physical and cognitive decline were observed. Unfortunately, she began to suffer from severe and painful neuropathy in her legs and feet. She was given strong opioid medications to relieve the pain, but she became increasingly unstable, physically and mentally. After a relatively harmless fender bender, my sister and I decided she was through driving. She was very reluctant in giving us the keys, realizing she really had no choice, however. To me, her resistance was very difficult to accept, considering what had happened to my father at the hands of a person who should no longer have been driving at the age of 93. Loss of autonomy and freedom of choice is never easy. And giving up one's driving is giving up a lifestyle of independence. But still, I didn't think it would be that difficult for her. As I reach her age at the time, I now understand better how she felt. My sister and I shared caregiving duties over a couple of years until we realized a permanent care facility would be needed. Fortunately, she lived out the rest of her life in a protected environment. We no longer needed to fear for her safety or for the safety of others. In thinking about this situation and doing some research on the topic, I have some suggestions for you as a caregiver of a loved one that you believe needs to stop driving. Try to have a calm and rational conversation with your loved one. It's always preferable to get other family members or friends involved in the discussion. That takes the heat off you personally. If group concern and pressure is involved, it may help the effort. Begin by asking how they feel about driving. Do they get nervous and tense during peak traffic times? Have they had any close calls? People peeping horns at them? Help your loved one recognize that driving may be getting more stressful and the risks greater. Discuss other options for transportation, Uber, Lyft, or public offerings. Volunteer to help in learning how to use them. Try to find other people who might take them shopping and errand hopping, or take it on yourself if you're able and willing. In your discussion, focus on your fears for their safety as well as the safety of other people they could harm. Share your emotions liberally. Your feelings may pull them in and have a greater impact than trying to make demands on them. Try to get them to accept the fact that it's time to stop driving before it's too late. Avoid an argument because it will make further discussions more difficult. If you get resistance, tell them it can be discussed at a later time. But don't wait too long. Before you attempt another conversation, gather some information from your local DMV. Find out if they have an assessment program for determining fitness for continued driving. Also, find out if a report from a doctor would be accepted or perhaps investigated. Check out the National Drive Able program that provides assessments for drivers. I'll put a link below. Maybe your loved one will agree to an assessment, maybe not. In the meantime, start gathering hard facts about their actual driving skills. Look for opportunities to ride with them and note what you observe. Write it down, if they'll let you. Gather information from others who may have ridden with them. Notice how they park or change lanes. Do they seem nervous and distractible? Will they listen and accept what you've learned about their driving performance? Never know. It's worth a try. Discuss the situation with the primary care physician or other healthcare providers if you have that clearance. The optometrist, ophthalmologist, psychologist, or physical therapist may have input to offer. Encourage your family member to seek out their help and advice. Try to have additional conversations with them. If you only get further resistance, try to find more support. If you have power of attorney or think your loved one will talk to an attorney, get legal advice. Sometimes agers will be willing to stop driving if they recognize the financial and legal risks they're taking. Because of my life experiences, I will go out on a limb here. If all else fails, take the keys, disable the car, or sell it if you have to. But talk to an attorney if protestations are strong or you feel threatened. No need to put yourself in personal, legal, or financial jeopardy. Hopefully, earlier intervention attempts will pay off. Be persistent and get help. You don't have to take this on alone. I found a helpful video for caregivers by Dr. Kernisan, my go-to online gerontologist, entitled, "When is it time to stop driving an agent?" Check the links below. Besides general recommendations, she discusses dementia issues and how to respond to them. I haven't found a good video specifically for the loved one who needs to stop driving. Share my earlier video if you think my experience will help. And now for the rest of my story. My father was very close to his grandson, Tony Diaz, my younger sister's son. He was a father figure to a boy who had been abandoned by his own father and was being raised by a single mother with few skills in managing his behavior as well as her own life in Pratt, Kansas, west of Wichita. Tony spent several years in a foster home and grew up adoring his grandfather. Following his Navy duty, Tony was a part-time student at the University of Texas at Austin. He was working full-time as a technician at a local TV station and had ambitions to become a firefighter. He rode his bike frequently to keep in shape for the physical. For one of his classes, he wrote a short biography about the grandfather he admired and the events of his tragic death. While biking home from a class on campus, he was run over and killed by a city bus driver incapacitated by drugs. The driver was criminally convicted and sentenced, and a lengthy lawsuit was eventually settled. I have some links below on that also for anyone who's interested. The reality of both grandfather and grandson being the victims of poorly controlled vehicles is unsettling to me. Dad and Tony, I get the message. I hope someone takes my keys at the right time if I don't hand them over first. Humpty here, wishing you and your family well. Thanks for giving me an opportunity in these 2 videos to publicly process my experiences and further cope with my grief. This will help me let go and move on. But I never want to forget the lessons I have learned.